What's cracking, guys and girls? Hopefully everyone's doing alright. I know I am. Right, so we're on phase 2, ladies and gentlemen, when I did say that we were going to discuss the electrics of the bike, and of course that, being the Shimano EP08 as to what you can see here. Now, since the last video, obviously more bits and pieces have come. I'm not too sure if you can obviously see some of the packaging in the boxes over there, but I'll obviously go through bits and pieces as to what I've ordered. So the first thing, obviously, but worth mentioning, would be the cover. So this is the cover, which will obviously go this way. It will obviously go basically like that on the bottom. Second thing obviously would be the cover. There's two types of covers you can actually get so I've opted for the bigger one. The reason for that is because I wanted it so that you can obviously cover the entirety of where it would obviously clamp in. Is this the right way? Nope, this is the right way. So it's going to mount in something like that. Obviously, like the power cable going into the motor, that's a bit exposed. Obviously I need to obviously pull it into the frame a bit more, but you get the point. Obviously if I dry fit it like that, it's going to obviously, there goes the cover. It'll obviously cover the basically it should cover some of the bolt holes and the basically the bolts which keep the motor in check. So that's going to be useful, and obviously I've gone to the provisions of obviously using titanium bolts in order to secure the motor, which is pretty cool. Got them off the market. Obviously other bits and pieces I'll need, so these will be the cables. Since the last video, it is worth mentioning I have routed through some of the cables. So brake cable protruding from the left hand side, because obviously I live in the UK, and then on the right hand side is my dropper cable and my brake hose. So obviously we've got electronic cables, speed sensor cable, which is in the bike. This I will need because the display I'm going to be running, sorry, let me show you. This is an adapter which will change the actual display as to what I'm using, because it's technically for the E8000 to E7000, so I'll be able to run it with the EP8s. And this is the speed sensor, which I've just taken out. There's two things in which I am missing. That is the spider / chain ring, which should be coming for tomorrow, which is pretty cool. Got some pedals, and the fork should also be coming for tomorrow as well. Obviously the headset hasn't been installed at this point because I do need to obviously route through the Di2 cable which connects in. I think I've measured everything, so of course I should have enough cable which protrudes from the motor going up the down tube and then protruding out and connecting into the junction box of the Shimano display. Speaking of the Shimano display, that's obviously mounted onto the handlebars at this point. But we're cooking on gas, ladies and gentlemen. We're cooking on gas. So yeah, I will keep you posted as to further developments. Okay, so just so we're all on the same page, ladies and gentlemen, this is how this is going to work. So I'm not too sure if you can see there, but obviously above the cable grommet, obviously that's where my Di2 cable is going to go. So I've obviously, again, I've not installed the headset, so I can obviously use my finger in order to finagle the cable out, but it'll obviously go through the down tube and then out where the motor would sit. Obviously there's the Shimano EP0801, but there it is anyway. The cables, again, I've had to get two cables because the display in which I'm going to be running on my handlebars, this one is compatible or more known for being on the E8000 and E7000, but it uses the older style cables. I think it's called the SD50, which that is this one right here. So this is the SD50 style cable. So that's going to go into the display junction box, and then it'll obviously go through the where the Di2 cable is supposed to go. Then we use this is an adapter which converts an SD50 to an SS300, is it? Is that what it's called? SD50, no, it is the here we go. So it will convert it into an SD300. So this is the internal one. So that's what this little junction adapter thing will do, and then this is my SD300 cable, which will connect in and then go out and then connect into the motor. So yeah, hopefully this will work. I've measured everything, so of course the cables as to what I've got should be enough, and then in which case hopefully I should be able to start getting everything more sorted. And of course once the Di2 cable is obviously in, that's when I can put the headset in and think, okay, now we can prepare for the forks and then we can obviously make some proper progress in relation to this build.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take this opportunity to announce that after reading through many comments, both on the channel, on different forums, on the Dengfu Facebook community group, as well as interacting with many upcoming DIY enthusiasts, I'm pleased to announce that Dengfu have given me permission to soon launch the official guidebooks specific for each Dengfu emtb frame set. The first of which will be for the popular Dengfu E22 frame, shortly followed by the equally popular Dengfu E10, then followed by the E14, the E55, and a further Dengfu frame which I can't talk about at this point, but you'll have to wait and keep a watchful eye out for future content. These free to download PDF format guidebooks will go through in chronological and methodical step-by-step process, ensuring that you know how to prepare, build, perform service for both frame and motor, and to troubleshoot any and all aspects relating to both the Dengfu frame and the respective system the frame uses. I know that many of you who are members of the Dengfu Facebook community group are aware of the announcement and are eagerly anticipating the guidebooks. Rest assured, myself, my fellow administrators and moderators of the Dengfu Facebook community group, as well as Dengfu and recognized distributors of the Dengfu emtb frames, are very excited. These guidebooks should prove to give a greater degree of confidence to those who are experienced and inexperienced when assembling and building up each unique frame set. Once Dengfu, myself, and all contributors of the guidebooks are satisfied with the final draft, I'll make a further announcement and leave links to where you can freely download these guidebooks. So keep a watchful eye on upcoming content and consider joining the Dengfu Facebook community group, link in the description. Okay, back to the main event.
Okay, so just in case if people didn't know this little hack, so what I've essentially done is I've just used some old outer cable which I've had lying around, and the outer cable now is protruding out of where the Di2 cable will go. What I'm now going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of electrical tape in order to attach the Di2 part of the cable, which I want to go on that end, and it will go on this. So, no, it's going to go on the other side actually, because I'll go from the back. I'll go from downwards up, but go from this, connect there onto the outer cable, and then I will gently finagle it through. I'm not going to yank it, because if I yank it, then there's a possibility that obviously it might come loose. You only need a little bit of electrical cable, and the reason for that is because if you start really layering on the electrical cable, that's when you might notice that like it might kink inside the frame. Like if I were to demonstrate just by doing that, nothing is kinking through, because obviously I've made sure that the way in which I've routed through the cable, nothing should kink. But I'm still obviously just going to finagle it through. I'm not going to yank it or anything along those lines, and it will come out of the other end. Once I've got it through the other end, that's when I can put the Di2 port on, and in which case I can obviously start routing through, well, mounting back the motor and connecting everything through. So yeah, I'll see you in a second once I've got that far. Alright, so I was going to do this off camera because it would just be a hell of a lot more easier, but I thought, sod it, no, let me just do it on camera, because I know that some people will be like, no, we want to see it, don't we want to see it, we want to see it, we want to see it. But like I said, not much electrical tape, sorry, obviously. It's just going to obviously just attach it on, and obviously it should just stay on. Don't want to obviously thicken it up too much. But again, what I'm going to do, zoom out, what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to poke it out from that end, and it'll obviously just come through. So there we go, there's the cable. So I'm doing this with one hand. Realistically, I want to do it with two. But let's make sure that we got the there you go, it's going in. So see, it's going in, making sure that we go in the same angle, grab the right one. And there we have it, right here. I've just disattached it. So this is the actual cable, the outer cable. Here is my Di2, right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just angle it in. Sorry, I'm getting off camera there. Poke it through a little bit more. There you go, right there. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My Di2 cable is through the frame. So obviously, again, this is going to connect in to the display, and then this part will obviously go into the motor. So yeah, that was literally 3 minutes. All right, back in a sec. Alright guys, it's a couple of weeks later. I'm not gonna lie, the bike's been built up for quite some time actually, and I've obviously done some test rides and such. So yeah, why don't we pan over to the bike and I'll show you exactly what it looks like. I won't lie to you people, this E08 has turned out better than I initially anticipated. And for good reason as well, because essentially why I picked up this bike was so it could acclimate me to the Shimano Steps system, which it totally has, and I think it will probably be the next video which you'll see, which will be the shakedown ride footage, which will show and highlight some of the things I've been able to notice in relation to using this particular motor, as well as the entire system, compared to systems to which I'm more familiar with, such as Bafang and to a certain extent Bros and Bosch and so on and so forth. But I did say in the last video that what I was going to do was to make a comparison between this system, the Shimano Steps, and the Bafang system. So I do have, just to show, the serviced M600 motor, which was briefly on my Dengfu E10 V2, which I whipped out. That bike is now using the M500 because, you know, didn't want any issues when I went up to Cannock Chase and such. But nonetheless, anyway, just for a size comparison, as you can see here, I'm not going to whip out the Shimano EP801 motor, I'm going to be honest with you, but as a size comparison, here it is. So of course you notice that the Bafang motor does, well, it is bigger. It's more heavy, I'll gladly say. This is weighing at what, is it 3.5 kilos if I'm not mistaken, versus the Shimano EP801, which is about 2.8 kilos if I'm not mistaken. Obviously 3.5 kilos, that's the motor on its own, so that's not including chainring, spider, crank, so on and so forth. And the same thing with the Shimano Steps motor anyway. But here's the Bafang M600. Next motor, which we'll obviously make a comparison to, will be the infamous and legendary Bafang M620. Now, just for reference, this motor on its own, this is about 5 kilos. So compared to this, which is near half, I will gladly say it is noticeable. So of course, just obviously putting it near enough in the same position as to what it would be on the frame, you'll notice that not only is it protruding a lot more, but obviously it's substantially a lot wider as well. The Q factor on the M620 is greater than that of the Shimano motors, and technically the M600 as well. But the one reason on which I wanted to make that as a comparison is because so many content creators to which I look at usually look at the motors and say, well, it's lighter and so on and so forth. But looking at the motor on its own, that's just one way of looking about it. I usually try and look at the entire system. So just for reference, the battery which this bike uses currently is the Dengfu E08, apologies, which is a 504 watt hours. Now what you may not realise is that Dengfu make quite a few batteries, and it does transpire that the E08G, which is a 725 watt hour battery, can indeed fit within this down tube. All you need to do is just reposition the lower mounts further down for the battery to fit in. But obviously, if you were to take into consideration the weight of the D4COC, which is 2.8 kilos, in conjunction with the motor, which is again 2.8 kilos, that's near enough the same weight as what this motor would be on its own. And obviously, this motor isn't being powered by anything, it's got to be powered by an 840 watt hour battery from Dengfu, so plus the 3.5-ish kilos for those batteries, you've got a system weight regarding the E22 at what, 8.5 to 9 kilos, and then depending on which motor you have for the E10, so what, 3.2 kilos if I'm not mistaken for the M5 and M510s, and an additional 3.5 kilos, that's what, 6.5 to, oh, we'll say 7 just to be safe, because you never know actually, but 7 kilos to 6.5 for the system weight of those frames. This 2.8 and 2.8, granted, not including cranks, chainring, spiders, so on and so forth, but you get the point. This frame is substantially lighter. This entire bike is lighter than the E10 and the E22. And the way it handles, the way it responds, it reflects that. And that's one of the reasons why I can't bring myself to say that it is similar to the E10 or the E22. It is a different platform, which again, you'll be able to gauge that in the upcoming video. Obviously, I could spend the next 5 minutes going over the intricate details, such as the different displays as to what's compatible with the Shimano motors versus Bafang and so on and so forth. And truth be told, I know that a lot of people on the Dengfu Facebook community group have asked me to compare this to said E10 and E22, which I will, don't get me wrong. But funnily enough, the bike in which I've actually been using as the base template to compare this bike to has actually been the Levo. And although this may shock a lot of you, this bike, compared to my Gen 2 Levo, are very similar. I've deliberately had to mullet this thing just so that it didn't clash with that bike. But yeah, there you go. But like I said, I'm going to wrap things up here anyway, because I feel that the next video is going to be probably the true video, which will showcase just how, in my opinion, how fantastic this bike is. Again, 150mm of rear wheel travel out back, 160 up front, mullet configuration. Geometry, I'm not going to lie, it is near enough identical to that of the Gen 2 Levo, ladies and gentlemen. Seat tube height, seat tube angle, head tube height, head tube angle, reach, chainstay length, BB height. They're near enough identical, believe me. But like I said, I'll wrap things up here. Stick around for the next video. Of course, until the next time, take it easy, stay safe, peace be the journey, #FABT, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.